Hi, I'm Peter Tragos, host of the Lawyer You Know podcast and YouTube channel. The saying goes, everyone hates lawyers until you need one. Well, I'm here when you need one to answer your questions and give you insight that you didn't know you needed. Welcome back to the Lawyer You Know, and we are still talking about this Derek Chauvin trial because it's kind of insane. The last video we did reacting to what one of the jurors said in an interview and kind of going through whether or not that's going to open the door for an appeal has created a lot of commotion on our page and our little community that is part of the Lawyer You Know with all you potential jurors watching it. So I love to hear what you think because no matter how different each one of you comments and thinks about the situation and looks at what a witness says or what a juror says, and you have your own ideas and thoughts and you apply your own experiences to it, it's amazing and eye-opening for me as a trial lawyer who has to try to explain this to jurors and relate to jurors and see what they're going to think and how they're going to look at expert witnesses and how they're going to look at defendants and things like that. So it's really awesome, and I appreciate it so much. I appreciate all the comments. I appreciate everybody subscribing. We're over 1,000 subscribers now, which is crazy to think just 6 months ago when we had none. So that's really cool, and I appreciate it. I appreciate the likes. I appreciate the subscriptions. So what I'm doing, which I usually don't do, is I'm going to kind of supplement that video because a lot of people said you have to watch the Good Morning America, the ABC interview with the same juror because he answers the questions totally differently. So today I'm going to watch this interview. I haven't really watched it yet, so I'm going to kind of react more live without as much preparation just to kind of see what the differences are, see if my opinion changes anywhere. And then I am going to go through some of the other things that people are sending me about this juror to see if it affects my analysis and see if it affects my opinion as to whether or not I think Chauvin's going to get a new trial and whether or not there's enough juror misconduct or jury issues here, outside forces pressuring this jury to potentially give him more of an opportunity to win his appellate motions or his motions for new trial. So let's get into the interview. I'm going to try to go quicker this time. I'm going to try not to drag it out since I've already given a lot of my thoughts on this juror, on this jury, on this trial, and a lot of the appellate motions and motions for new trial. So we're going to just stick to what the differences are and what I think about this interview compared to the other one.
Television interview with one of the jurors in the Derek Chauvin trial. Brandon Mitchell was one of 12 who found Chauvin guilty on all 3 charges that led to the former police officer's conviction for the murder of George Floyd. I spoke to Brandon just moments ago. Good morning, Brandon. Thank you for your willingness to share with us what went on inside that jury room in the deliberations. Please tell us.
First, I want to start off by sending my condolences to the Floyd family. I haven't got a chance to do that publicly, so I want to do that first and foremost.
So he didn't do that in the other interview. So that's the first difference. Some people are going to have thoughts about that, I know, just judging by the other comments of some of the other videos. That's not abnormal. We do personal injury cases, and sometimes it's, fatality, sometimes it's very serious injuries, paralysis, and a lot of times after the trials, the jurors, if they do talk to us, do want to give their condolences to the family because they're sorry this happened to them. It's just being a person feeling sorry that something bad happened to somebody else. So this doesn't show any bias to me. This just shows he's caring. He wanted to, publicly apologize because he hasn't been able to talk to them. He's a juror, so he hasn't spoken to the Floyd family. He's just giving his condolences. To me, that's no harm, no foul. I'm sure some people aren't going to like it. That's just my opinion.
But no, the deliberation room, it was pretty much, for the most part, it was straightforward. There were a few hiccups with, terminology and understanding exactly what the instructions were for each case. But like I said, for the most part, we got in, we got out. There wasn't too much banter back and forth.
Was there one juror, though, on one of the lesser charges that was a holdout for a while?
Yeah, so, we probably deliberated for 4 hours, and of that 4 hours, it was I guess we were going over more so the terminology.
Again, a lot of comments about it was 10 hours, it was multiple days, it wasn't just 4 hours. I wasn't in the jury room, so some people don't realize sometimes the jurors will break, but they're not deliberating. Sometimes they're eating, sometimes they're doing other things or walking back and forth or taking bathroom breaks. So he's saying they deliberated for 4 hours. He was there, he was deliberating. That's what I'm going off when I say 4 hours. He said it should have been an hour in the last video. That's what I'm going off of when he said it should have been an hour. So some comments were saying, check your facts. It was 10 hours. I don't know how long they were deliberating. I don't know if they were, playing cards or something back there or whatever. He was back there. He said they deliberated 4 hours. That's what I'm going off of.
It was being used to make sure that we understood exactly what was being asked. I think the one juror that was kind of, I wouldn't say slowing us down, but was being delicate with the process, more so. Was just kind of hung up on a few words within the instruction.
Again, I've had people tell me, and this is the first time I'm watching this, so I don't know if there's more coming, but just that, he didn't say there was a juror that hung him up, but he said, I'm not going to say they were slowing us down. He didn't, rip that juror or anything like that. So I had some people in the comments and some people emailing me saying that, oh, this is totally different to what he said before. I don't think this is very different than what he answered in the last interview as far as it regards to the one juror that maybe was a hang-up. All the interviewers are asking him about it, so he must have said it somewhere, or somebody must have said there was one juror kind of holding him up. But again, I think he answered it fine. No issues with that answer.
And that's how you were able to convince this particular juror? Clarification on the wording?
So we just kind of went around the room. We literally broke down the sentences and broke down the words and what the meanings were.
I don't know why she said, so that's how you were able to convince them. I mean, that is what happens in jury rooms. We already know that. When they deliberate, they're all convincing each other of what they think and how they want to vote, so it's fine. But if I was an interviewer and I wanted to protect this verdict, I would just ask the questions a little differently, I think. I don't know, I would have just said, so what changed their mind? Versus, so is that how you convinced them? Because now it looks like he's convincing another juror to do what he wants, which goes good with the narrative for the defense attorneys, which is not something she wants to do or anybody wants to do. I don't think that's interviewing him. It's not something he wants to do, that's for sure. So again, just the verbiage of the questions is kind of suspect. But Robin Roberts is awesome, so she's much better at her job than I could ever be.
It just described it several different ways from different perspectives until we came to a common conclusion.
Perfectly fine answer. We just discussed it, went over terminology until we came to the conclusion that we all agreed on. Good answer.
Brandon Mitchell, you know that there are some people who believe that the racial climate and the protests in the streets may have impacted the deliberations. Was that ever discussed, and was that an issue at all?
We weren't watching the news, so we don't know what was going on. We were really just locked in on the case. And then with so much stress coming from the case, I mean, those things are so secondary because you're literally, throughout the trial, you're watching somebody die on a daily basis. So that stress alone is enough to take your mind away from whatever's going on outside of the four walls of the courtroom. I mean, that wasn't even something that's in any of our minds. I don't think so.
What was the impact?
I mean, pretty consistent, I think, is that he said it wasn't in their minds. He added the fact that they had to watch watch George Floyd die every day in this trial, which was stressful. He said in the other interview there was stresses going on in the case. That was stressful enough. We weren't paying attention to the news. I think that's a consistent answer, and I don't see anything wrong with it.
Of that 9-minute, 29-second video, and was that the difference maker?
The video is it's a historic video, unfortunately. And then seeing the multiple angles of it from the body cams, from the other cell phones, it was probably the most important piece of evidence.
Was there any testimony? Was there one piece of testimony for you that made a difference?
Yeah. So for me, I'll say two. For sure, Donald Williams, just how he spoke about everything, and Dr. Tobin. I think once Dr. Tobin got on the stand and the way he spoke and the details that he gave and the way he gave the details, I thought that really solidified the prosecution's case.
Derek Chauvin not taking the stand.
Before we get to Derek Chauvin not taking the stand, consistent answers, I think. Talked about similar evidence, similar testimony that was important to him, that swayed him, that made him provide a guilty verdict. I think it's consistent so far, and we're over halfway through, so let's see what's to come. Because now, here's one of the things people warned me about, saying his answer was absolutely different. He said, something about if Derek Chauvin would have testified, I think it could have changed things. I wish he would have. So we'll see if there is some verbiage like that, because again, I haven't heard what he says specifically about this yet.
Did that have an impact, not hearing from him, the former officer?
Yeah, definitely it did. When we were in the deliberation room, a few people wondered, they wanted to actually hear from him. They were curious on, just what his thoughts might have been throughout. it probably was to his detriment that he didn't take the stand, because people were curious on what his thoughts were throughout the entire incident.
Okay, so assuming that's all he says about it, because I don't know if there's more to come, but just based off that, I agree, not as good of an answer as the first interview that I did a reaction to. And I think when he says, he's not necessarily saying yes to her answer. He's kind of thinking of what his answer is going to be. He said he thinks it was to his detriment. And he says the jurors were curious about what he would have said and what he was thinking. I actually think that's okay. That's just being honest. Now, I don't like it as a criminal defense attorney. If I'm representing a defendant, I don't want them to make that to his detriment, that he's not testifying. Now, he didn't say that's why they convicted him. He didn't say that was a key piece of evidence. Again, he's already said a couple witnesses and the video were the key pieces of evidence that really swayed him. I think that it's really hard for juries to understand that the defense doesn't have a burden of proof. It's really hard for them to understand that he doesn't have to testify. But I want everybody out there and this guy to think about it. If you are accused of a crime, okay, let's assume you didn't do it. And let's assume that you feel like you have strong evidence up there, but that if you take the stand, a juror might not like the way you talk. They might not like the way you say something. They may not like something about your background. You may have a previous crime that you don't want to talk about, and if you take the stand, you have to talk about it. Those are certain rules that people don't know about. If you have felonies in the past, they can put you up on the stand and say, you have other felonies, right? But if you don't take the stand, they don't get to talk about it. So there are a lot of reasons that defendants don't testify. It's not always because they're guilty, even though that's what people think. And I think if you were a defendant, you would want that jury to understand that the fact that you're not testifying does not mean you are guilty. And that's how juries have to look at it. Because if they're looking at they're dismissing our constitutional rights as citizens. And nobody ever thinks about it the other way around. Like, if I was a defendant and there's a juror thinking about this about me, would I want them thinking about it? The answer is no. But there's also an honesty thing. I think he's just being honest, saying, yes, we were curious about what he would have said. That's fine. Being curious about what he would have said is fine. And also saying it couldn't have hurt because he got convicted like he did in the last video, I think that's fine because that's just stating facts. But this saying it was to his detriment, that's towing the line a little bit more. I don't think it comes anywhere near making a motion for a new trial or totally violating his Fifth Amendment right. I don't think it comes anywhere near that, but I do think it's worse than the last interview, and I do think it is an inconsistency and a little bit different. I don't think it's as huge of a deal as some of the comments made it seem, but let's keep going.
Was a very, I don't have to tell you, a very diverse jury. Everybody around you, they ranged in ages from 20 to 60, 5 men, 7 women, 4 black, 6 white, 2 self-identify as multiracial. Your experience, you believe, has shown the importance of black men to show up for jury duty. Why do you believe that?
Yeah, so I mean, in order for to change to happen, we got to get us to those type of avenues, get us to those rooms. We got to show up for jury duty. We have to vote. Those are things that are important to the society as a whole. And if we want to be viewed differently in society and start to see different results, we have to start to do those things. We cannot avoid them. We can't put them on the back burner. We have to put them in the forefront. And jury duty is definitely one of those things, especially with the insane number of black men being incarcerated. So we definitely have to get on those panels and stuff like that.
You began by...
Okay, so totally different from the first interview, not an inconsistency. That question just wasn't asked of him. Really interesting thought process, right? So people that don't like him, people that are on a certain side that hate everything that happened in this case and don't think Chauvin should have got convicted are going to say, see, he was a plant. He was in there to try to, change this system and affect this case. And if they prove that, obviously, they're going to get a new trial. They're going to win an appeal if they prove that he was trying to get on this jury to force a certain verdict. But what I see that as a lawyer that does criminal defense and personal injury, that's great. That's exactly what I want. I totally agree with him. We need everybody in the country. Our diverse country needs to be diverse juries. The last trial we had, which was about 2 years ago when our plaintiff was black, right before COVID, before trials stopped for 1.5 years, our very last one, we had a black plaintiff client. We had 40 people in jury selection to choose from. We had 0 black men out of those 40 people. We had 1 black female, and she had to leave because of work situation. So when she left, we had 0 black people in a jury for a black plaintiff. very hard to pick a jury of your peers when nobody looks like you on the jury as a plaintiff or a criminal defendant. And that's what he said. So many criminal defendants or people that are getting incarcerated are black men. Nobody looks like them on the jury. So how's that a jury of their peers? He's right. Black men and all minorities and everybody in the country, to keep it as diverse as the country, the jury should look like the country. Because the citizens of the United States are supposed to be making these decisions on behalf of other citizens. So they can be like, well, what if that was me? If I was in that situation, and somebody that just can't relate at all to the plaintiff or the defendant, it's really hard to feel like you have a jury of your peers up there. So I personally loved that comment, and I hope everybody could take it to heart, no matter what you look like, realizing there are other people that look like you and have dealt with what you've dealt with, and you should be on their jury because you are their peers. Really important. I loved it.
Giving your condolences to the George Floyd family. You haven't had a chance to speak with them. What would you want to say to them?
His name is going to live on. His legacy is now cemented in history. It's now become so much bigger than him as an individual. He's now become almost, he's become a legacy. And it's a legacy that will forever be here, and it's forever it will hopefully create some change within society. And that is huge, and that is unfortunate. It's a positive lining within a negative result as his death. But that's just me as a positive person, just kind of looking towards the bright side. Like I said, at the end of the day, they still lost a brother, a nephew, a cousin. It still was a man that lost his life. But his name will live on, and what his name means now is so much more than what they probably imagined. It's literally cemented in history.
Oh, well, Brandon Mitchell, thank you very much for your time this morning, and thank you for fulfilling your civic duty. Wishing you all the best.
Absolutely.
Take care.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. So ending with that, again, we didn't get much of that in the first video. There's nothing wrong with it. Like, there's nothing wrong for any person to say that. But if the defense is going to argue that he sought out to be on this jury, to intimidate the other jurors, and convince the one juror that was on the fence to make sure that that juror voted with them, to make sure he got a conviction, and he walked in there with a conviction and disregarded the law, disregarded the presumption of innocence, disregarded the Fifth Amendment rights of the defendant. Man, those are the types of comments that the defense can use, even though he thinks that and believes that, and that's fine. But going on the national media, spreading the message and things like that, I mean, there are people doing that, and it's fine for them to do that. They're on the outside looking in. They'll admit, we are not fair and impartial. We are not unbiased. We believe what Chauvin did was wrong. We think he's guilty no matter what anybody says. And they are absolutely disqualified for being on that jury. They can be good people, they can be caring people, they can be correct in what they're saying, but they just are not fair and impartial jurors to be on that jury. It's not one or the other, okay? It's not mutually exclusive. You can't be, you don't just have to be either, if you're a good person, you can be on the jury. If you're a bad person, you can't be on the jury. That's not how it works. You can be a good person with perfect thoughts and pure thoughts, although nobody has perfect and pure thoughts, but let's just say you can be a good person, caring about people, loving people, and still be absolutely disqualified to be on a jury. Based on your life experiences, based on what you think, based on your job, whatever it may be, there are things that disqualify really great people that we have struck from jurors because they're just not right for that jury. And this is some of the stuff that if he was asked it specifically in jury selection and he gave different answers, that could be a problem. So let's get to that, because some people sent me, and here's the other thing. So I don't recall specifically these questions and answers. I watched some of jury selection, not all of it, but I don't recall these specifically, but a lot of people are reporting these specific questions and answers. So let's look at them and see if that affects how we think. So reportedly, Mitchell answered no to 2 questions on a questionnaire for potential jurors. So for those of you who don't know, jurors get pieces of paper or electronic nowadays where they click yes or no to certain answers and they type in other answers like their views on BLM or Back the Blue or law enforcement or family and law enforcement, family that have been arrested, family that have been convicted before. They answer all those questionnaires up front. And in a lot of cases, the lawyers can go look at social media, they can go look on Google and see what they can find about these potential jurors. Sometimes you can't. Depends on what jurisdiction. A lot of federal courts will say absolutely not, you can't do that. Some courts don't mind, they expect you to do it. Some even tell you you can. So in this case, I think they said that the defense attorneys did go look at the social media and didn't find anything that they, felt showed this about this potential juror. So here are the 2 questions he answered no to. Let's see if we think he was lying. The first asked whether he or someone close to him had participated in any of the demonstrations or marches against police brutality that took place in Minnesota after Floyd's death. And he said no. And I've had people tell me, that's a lie. He took place in that march for MLK. We saw pictures of him wearing the shirt with "Get Off Our Necks." The question says, in Minneapolis after Floyd's death. So if it wasn't in Minneapolis after Floyd's death, then the answer is no. Okay? Not a lie. Defense lawyer's job to be precise and continue to ask questions to try to get to the bottom of what he thinks about all this. The second question asked, other than what you have already described above, have you or anyone close to you participated in protests about police use of force or police brutality? He also answered no. Once again, a lot of people saying he lied, he was at that MLK march. Problem is, if he answered no to that, and he's clarified now, I've seen in some other articles that he said, I went for MLK. I went for the dream. I went there to be with other like-minded black people. It was a great experience. I've never been to DC before. That's why he said he went. He didn't say he went because of police brutality or police use of force. Now, he was wearing a shirt that said "Get Off Our Neck." He was wearing BLM hat, but he clarified those. Even in the voir dire, in the jury selection process, he said, I have favorable views toward BLM. I stand for the statement, not necessarily the group. And a lot of people have come out and say, I agree with that. The statement on its face, I mean, everybody should agree that Black Lives Matter, but not everybody agrees with the group. And that's kind of what he said in jury selection. He said he is neutral on the back of the blue. He doesn't hate cops. He had some buddies that were cops from the gym, and he could be fair and impartial in this jury. I don't think that's a lie. I mean, I think if he has an explanation as to why he went to that march, that's not enough, in my opinion, to show that he lied. He was also honest about the fact that he had seen parts of the video. He said he hadn't seen all of it. He had talked about the case with his family and friends, and they hadn't come to a conclusion, but he didn't think that Chauvin showed up to murder somebody, planning on murdering somebody. Now, the evidence in the case ended up being guilty for the crimes that were actually charged. And the key question that any juror that I want to be on a jury, I finish with, do you think you can put that aside and be fair and impartial? And if they say yes, then it's going to be hard to strike him for cause, because he's saying no matter what I think about BLM or Back the Blue or defund the police or whatever, I can put that aside, I can look, and I can be fair and impartial. It's hard for even people to realize, can they be fair and impartial? We've heard a lot about unconscious biases, and people don't even know when they're biased or they're ignorant to their bias. But that's what this jury selection process is about. We have to ask people about it. We have to take their word, and we end up with a jury that's going to come in with their experiences and their bias that we can't really do much about. We just hope they're going to give it a fair shake. And that's what happened in this case. One of the other things I've seen reported, and again, I'm not sticking to any of this as if it's, absolutely a fact beyond a shadow of a doubt. I'm looking at reports. People are sending me stuff, asking me what my opinion on it is, if it's true. So they've been sending me stuff where it says he didn't even know he owned that shirt. It was his uncle's shirt. He'd never worn it before. He didn't even know what it said on it. But again, on that first video we did, the very first thing I noticed he was promoting some podcast over his shoulder. And unfortunately, a lot of people now have gone to that and scrutinized that podcast and found a video from, I believe, October of 2020. And here's a screenshot from that video. He's wearing that same exact shirt in the podcast that he's filming and putting on YouTube. Hard to say you didn't even know you owned that shirt, or it was your uncle's, or you never worn it before with that. Now, does that change the outcome of this case? No. But unfortunately, it may be used to say that he's not truthful there, maybe he's not truthful here. You just don't want to open those doors. And again, none of these doors would have been open if he wasn't doing all these interviews. That's the other thing I don't understand. Why not wait till all the appellate process is over? If you really, really, really want to give these interviews and you feel a calling to do it, wait until you're not going to give him an opportunity to get a new trial. Now, honesty should come out and justice should come out, and there's a reason why everything happens, right? So maybe he's coming out and doing all this for a reason. Let's see what happens. But there are some inconsistencies in what he's saying. Is it enough for a new trial or an appeal? I don't think so. So there's a couple things that can happen now. The defense can obviously get a new trial. They can win an appeal. They can also ask the judge to bring Mitchell back in and ask him more questions to see if he was forthcoming, to see if he was honest in the jury questionnaires and throughout the jury process, to see if they missed something or if he lied about something or what. But a lot of this has to be protected in the record. I've talked about that in my other videos. We have certain strikes and objections we have to make as lawyers to make sure that we can even make this claim and appeal. And in jury selection with the strikes, it's a very complicated kind of procedure, but you have to try to strike the witness. If the judge doesn't let you, you have to ask for additional strikes at the end. You have to say, I would have struck this guy, Mitchell, if I had an additional strike for these reasons. And if it ends up matching up at the end, that helps you a lot in the appeal. I don't know if the defense attorney did that in this case. But there are two main reasons that jury misconduct can create the opportunity for a new trial. So let me just read them to you. So one is when extraneous prejudicial information is improperly brought to the jury's attention. For example, through pretrial publicity or third-party contact, such as a judge or an attorney communicating with the jurors. Or when an outside influence is improperly brought to bear on jurors. And that can include one juror trying to force his way on a jury and convince the jury to do what he wants or what he thinks is right. So again, those are going to be the arguments. That's kind of the language that's used in a lot of cases. That's from federal cases, which is nationwide, but each state kind of has their own rules for this. But that's what we're looking for. Did that happen in this case? Does this GMA video and interview change your opinion? Does it bolster or enhance your opinion you already had? Let me know in the comments. Let's get crazy again. Let's talk about it. Let's be respectful, but let me know what you think, because getting into the mind of jurors that are just lay people, they aren't lawyers, they aren't doctors, they're just, even some of them that are doctors, because doctors can be on juries. So just let me know what you think. Let me know how this would affect you. Do you agree? Would you think like him if you were on a jury? And please continue to subscribe, continue to like, continue to comment, because this is getting fun. Our community's growing. We're doing a lot of stuff together. We're learning about how we all think about this. You're learning about how lawyers think about it. I'm learning about how lay people think about it. It's a lot of fun. Let me know what else you want me to react to. If you have any questions for me, I'll try to answer them in the comments. Anything worthy of a video, I will try to do. Let me know. Thanks for being with me.
Thanks for watching this episode of The Lawyer You Know. If you like this content, please share it with your friends. Make sure you subscribe to our page and like our videos. If you want some interaction, get in the comments and we'll be sure to get back to you. If you want to know any more information about our firm or this page, you can find out in the description or visit tragoslaw.com. We post multiple times throughout the week, so make sure you hit that bell so you can get the notification and not miss out on the next episode.